Yesh od surah shel nisayon ha'over alenu harbe. There is another form of a test. A nisayon is like a test that Avram went through. Nisayon payadi akeda that confronts us often. When you are rushing on your way because you're afraid, shouldn't lose anything. So you quickly do a quick tefillah because you really have you have something to do, right? Like davening before a big race or something like that, right? So you quickly, well, but you may rush it. But that's a big stressful time. You have to make a plane. Is it daven quickly beforehand? It's a great nisayon, and it's very difficult. And it requires much might to conquer over it. Bibrat, shematzavim elu, mishanim tsura mizman lizman. These things change often. V'chashash hefsid lochetz alav me'od me'od. So there's a different type of pressing matter that hits you at different moments in life, and the concern of losing of losing whatever you're likely to lose, the money, the opportunity, right? The encounter. It's an extraordinary amount of pressure, and because there's so much pressure involved in that, so it presses us to daven b'merutza, to daven quickly, and to not have proper kavanah. So if we review actually the Gemara in Brachos Davav, Brachos, you have all the Gemaras about davening, about Shema, about Shema Esrei. Kol harogil lavo lebeis hakneses v'lo ba yom echad HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashu bo. Anyone who usually comes to shul but doesn't show up one day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashu bo. Hashem is going to ask him, what's the deal? What's pshat? Why'd you miss? V'im l'davar rishos halach, and if eino gelo, and if so he says that if he was doing something, a davar harishus, something that was not obligatory, but something that was discretionary, then it's not going to help him. In other words, because he should have had bitachon b'Hashem. Let's say you had a big job interview, and because of that you couldn't daven. Well, as a davar harishus, you should have had bitachon b'Hashem. That's a very harsh Gemara, right?
What if you daven by yourself? You just daven.
Right. Well, it says here called Ragil Levalavesa Knesses. Languages usually come to shul. So daven the minions, talking about tzibur. Now, again, medical issues or pressing matters, like sometimes onus you can't do anything about it. If you're about to travel, much as if you're on a plane for 15 hours, you would have to daven on the plane. Similarly, the time needed to get to the plane is also part of that cheshbon. Try to work your flight around it. You can't always do that. But we're talking about, where you had discretion and you had the ability to be there, and you decided that whatever it was, you wanted to rush, you wanted to daven quickly at home, so you could just clear your mind, whatever, and you could have planned that thing another time. It wouldn't have mattered. So there's a davar rishus.
It's a detriment then if you go to shul on a regular basis, because then you're held accountable.
Right. So it creates a liability when you're on a high level. By the way, if you live your life, it's interesting. We have to explore that. But if you do live your life on a high level, the expectations are higher. You ever notice in school the kids who constantly perform at a high level, when they misbehave, it's much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have more of a bandwidth for getting in trouble and getting expelled. All that's true, but just the surprise on the teacher's face and the way an otherwise serious person is treated when they make a joke, because this person is never a jokester. So how dare this person interrupt, right? But if you're the regular prankster, then it's almost like expected. Like you walk in, you have a smile on your face. You're what's the joke you're about to crack at any moment? So it's unfair. Living a virtuous life makes you obligated to live at a higher level the next day.
That's why Moshe was punished just for hitting and not talking, which is such a small thing.
Moshe's held draconian standards. Moshe's held to very high madrega. I'm the Orakan al Divrei Gemara. So that's what he said. Good. The words of Chazal, they penetrate and they descend to the depths. I mean, they go to your heart. How obvious are these things? When a person refrains from coming to shul or study because there's an urgent matter that comes up, you have a doctor's appointment, right? So it's a chiddush. You might have thought that, but he's saying no. He's saying that if you make an excuse and say, well, I had an important matter, you're still going to suffer. You're still going to lose out. You are obligated to show up and not to take away from your kvios, from your regular pattern. You have a regular, even by the way, an avel who's not allowed to teach Torah. If you teach like a daf yomi, you have to continue to teach. You may continue to teach.
What about the teacher?
Same thing.
Class?
A teacher for the
You're talking
rabbin.
about during
If we have a replacement, it's a different story. But if there's no replacement, you should do it. Yeah. Now, v'im dvarim kal v'chomer, all the more so. Im al shelo ba lebeis hamedrash tovim oso kach. If you don't show up into the beis medrash and they say to you, "Why didn't you show up?" Harei kol shekfar omedu lifnei Hashem yisbarach lo. So when you're in the beis medrash and you're already davening, as b'shil tzrachav menatek hakesher, and then you're going to disconnect the connection, unplug, to deal with something that's totally non-obligatory. So someone's going to schmooze with you during davening. You're already there. You're in shul. Someone's going to say something to you, and you decide to unplug from God to plug into some other discourse. All the more so is that a problem. Interesting, right? In other words, the higher level you bring yourself, the more tragic it is to disconnect. Is the way we're forming this. Formulating it. So vafilu hu imhu davar nachutz, even if it's an urgent matter, mikol makom haya lo liftach b'Hashem. You still have to have what's called bitachon b'Hashem. V'chein kasher be'emtza berachas hamazon, it's outside telephone. Now, man, let's say you're benching and the phone suddenly rings. Kol misbalbel, and everyone's confused. Mi yodeh is a davar dachov yishkan. Who knows? Everyone jumps up. Who knows what the important matter is? Talking to another person, the phone rings. You look. Right? I don't like keeping things in my pocket when I teach, but I just put it upside down, right? So it's distracting, and then all of a sudden you stare. Well, who's calling me? What urgent matter? And then you decide to look, and it's usually someone telling you that your car insurance is a the fire and police department, a political action committee has me on speed dial all day long. And one time years ago, I fell for it, thinking that I was really supporting the local fire department. Turns out I was really supporting some local candidate. Had nothing to do with the fire department at all. Now I can't get off that call. I know the voice now. Hi, is Seth there? It's every time. No, it's not.
I remember someone coming to the door in the women's section, and I looked over, backing me out. There was a woman there who left her lights on in the parking lot. So I go to tell her, "You've left your lights on." And she is looking at her scooter. She would not make eye contact with me. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you're going to have a dead car tomorrow night. And I was just amazed by that.
Wow.
Because I'm pretty sure I would have ran out and turned my lights on.
And Motzei Shabbos, she needed a ride home. I know the rest of the story. No, I do know the rest of the story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
That's amazing.
it is amazing. Yeah, it costs her $500. So okay,
But Hashem, that's what
Right.
he says, Hashem will make it
Yeah.
up somewhere else.
well, the Gemara says yesterday in the Daf Yomi, Shomer Pesayim Hashem. Hashem looks after fools, holy fools. What does that mean? Sometimes if you do a mitzvah, even if it's done in a foolish way, Hashem looks after you. So that's why the Gemara Tosos Paskins that if you are drinking on Purim excessively and you end up breaking someone's table or a cabinet, and because it's mitoch simchas Purim, you're fine because Shomer Pesayim Hashem. Hashem looks after fools. Simchas Purim.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to get that.
On Purim, you are. Well, you're supposed to drink on Purim, but you're not supposed to break anything. But we understand that. Okay. Anyway, actually, the line was that if you don't know whether you're going to drink responsibly or not, there you're exempt. If you don't know to drink responsibly or not, so then we pass in Shomer Pesayim Hashem. Hashem looks after the fools. That's the Okay, so how wondrous is this idea that that all of a sudden, right? You're we skipped one line. You get so confused. Who knows what important matter is waiting for me? The phone is ringing. And you give yourself a heter, give yourself the allowance to stop your avoda with various hints and noises and news and right the whole conversation you have with new.
Yeah.
Right, divrei Chazal tofchim al panov. The words of Chazal are hitting you on the face. Haya lo livtoch b'Hashem yisparach shedavar derechov zeh lo yivrach lo. Should have had bitachon that this urgent matter is not going to harm you in any way. It's not going to go away. You're not going to lose an opportunity. Now, the story, one of the greatest examples of this story is Dama ben Nesina. Dama ben Nesina is a non-Jewish hero in the Gemara who was the exemplar in the Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Lamed or so, for Kibbud Avayim, honoring your father and mother. And remember, the story is he's the one who has under his pillow, right, the key. The father has under his pillow the key where he keeps his jewels. And the family jewels are kept there. So they're under the pillow, and the Jews came knocking because they needed for the Choshen, for the Kohen Gadol's breastplate, they needed the certain jewels, and he had it, and he didn't want to disrupt his father's sleep, and because of that, they kept upping the ante. Oh, maybe you want more money, and that wasn't the reason at all. And in the end, the Gemara tells not only does he get more money, but he actually ends up getting the merit of having a paraduma. He was the one who had the only paraduma at one point. So when they need a paraduma, he owned the paraduma also. So this guy was like a repository for all of the Jewish rituals in the Mikdash. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But then, so they bought it, a paraduma from him. And that's
I think so, yeah.
Actually, that's what I heard, that it was, he actually needed more money than he would have.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and there's another story. This happened years later with the Rothschild family. Let's see, when did he live? It was early 1800s. It was one of the German wars, right? The German Jew, and they needed I'm blanking on what it was, but they basically needed his help in his factory to be able to produce some sort of weapons and things like that. So in the long run, the merit of producing weapons for the great German Empire is not such a great zuchus, but putting those. We know the great Krupp's company makes wonderful coffee makers today, but they made some other things back in the 1940s. But they were pretty good at heating things up. So they're involved in a lot of this stuff. But Rothschild they knocked on his door. I think they came to him, and I think they wanted something with the factory, and basically he ignored it because it was a Shabbos story. Then they kept coming back. We're sending telegrams, they wouldn't open it, and I think by the time the final telegram came, the price had been upped so much, and he made a fortune off of it. So, yeah, you'll have to look up what Krupp's produced. Okay. All right, Dal, you got in. Okay, good. You got into that share. Okay, Tov. So ma nifla maise. So we see the story repeats itself, right? Ma maise sheshamati al chachamecha b'dorenu. Shenasam Eretz Yisrael America. There was a great chacham in our generation who flew from Israel to America on an airplane. Thankfully, not on pterodactyl back. V'asu chanis beinayim Paris, and they made a. Yeah, they made a stop in Paris. V'namad shamlis palel. He stopped at daven. Peta be'emtza tfilaso shomeahu shmachrizim shekol nosim tzrichim la'alot l'matos. Time to get on the plane. Hoy yochol l'mayir l'tfilaso ki lo lahafsid atisa b'lo la'avor al shum halacha b'shulchan aruch. He didn't want to stop his. He could have rushed his tefillah, right? He didn't want to lose the flight, and he would have been fine in accordance to halacha. Everyone who flies knows how stressful this could be. Manora lahargish nidach v'takua b'makom zar lachalutin, and how wondrous or difficult it is to feel that pressure in a strange place. Not just traveling and being tired and exhausted, hefsed zman, loss of time, to wait for another airplane. Could be a full 24 hours. What will happen to your baggage, right? Since you're not with the bags, they're gonna like go around the circle around the conveyor belt a few times, and they'll be locked away somewhere or sent to Zimbabwe. And then, right? Sorry, they were waiting for me. So many other concerns. He didn't move. He lost the airplane. So I just heard a story about some guy who did this. That is remarkable. I definitely would not have stood there and said Shemona Esrei. But all right, this is a very high darga. There's a Rambam in Bias HaMikdash, Perek Beis Halacha Hey. What does the Rambam say? That a Kohen who leaves the temple b'shas avoda during the avoda bilvad chayav misa ben Kohen gadol ben Kohen hedyot shneimar. So if you leave during the avoda as a Kohen, whether Kohen gadol Kohen hedyot, you're chayav misa. You're obligated. You're liable death. Shneimar umi pesach ol moed lo seitzu pein tamosu. From the opening of the ol moed you shall not leave lest you die. Klomar lo sanichu avoda v'seitzu mevuolim dechufim. Don't leave behind your avoda and leave sort of in a huff or in a hurry. The Rekev Mishnah comments there on the Rambam. Let's say in the middle of the avoda, he finds out that he's an onain. Someone died, right? It's a text message. And he's an onain. Onain can't do avoda. Even if that happened, if you leave, prior to having another Kohen take over for you, it's disgrace in the avoda. The over you violate a law and you chai misa. In other words, you cannot rush out of the avoda to make sure that everything's in place. The avoda is based on mikdash, and that's true when it comes to the service of the temple. Anyone who understands knows that this is a profound halacha that impacts even our discussion for tefillah.
My dad
Right.
always used to say, he always used to say, you don't run out of shul, you walk calmly out of shul because you don't want to show like you're running,
Right.
like you just find you're doing it.
Right. The only time it's permissible to run shul, I learned, is when people throw candy bags. And you have to, then all the rules are broken. You can throw candy at a Torah, you can throw it at your friend's head, you can run in shul, you can steal candy from some kid. Vali nefesh shezachu la'amod b'nisyonos. A Baal Nefesh who is able to uphold such a nisayon, such an enormous test, domim misaprim domim misfarim shevenosaf lamash yesh kan me'elchos derechad shelo letzis ba'al mikdash yesh kan od shtei ha'aros nichbados. So, in addition to the fact that he's not violating the mandate not to leave shul or mikdash in a rush, we also have two other ideas that come up. Hachas inyan habitachon. Number one is that you have a tremendous amount of faith in God. I don't have to leave. That's, by the way, the hardest thing after shul. Stay put in daven for a few more minutes. But they're serving kiddush. Like, what's going to happen if you don't get to kiddush in time? Like, the worst that could happen is like the good stuff is taken, right? But you get a few more minutes with Hashem. It's amazing.
What if a Kohen is having chest pain and thinks he's got a heart attack?
Saving life comes first.
It does.
Yeah, always.
Here, it doesn't say that. It just says chayav mita.
Right, if he rushes out for no reason. I mean, if you're saving a life, you're allowed to do whatever you have to do, which is not.
You can even you could do mitzvahs don't stand in the way of saving a life, right?
No, only 3 mitzvahs do, but meaning you can't do yara v'yavor is you violate rather that you get killed rather than violate, which would be avodah zarah shvichas dam gilei arayos. And Or if any mitzvah, if it's a time of shmad, if the government is persecuting you and they say, I want you to eat pork, then you have to die. If on a normal day, if someone walks at you on the street and says to you, I want you to eat pork or die, you eat pork.
For real?
Right.
So how is that-
But
how
if
is
it's,
it-
well, because the Shas Shmad means there's zeros, there's a mandate, and there's a government rule against Jews. Jews can't observe Shabbos, Mila, Rosh Chodesh. So when there's a rule like that, then you have to die rather than violate it, because it's a Chil Hashem otherwise. It's a
but
Kiddush
So
Hashem.
then, in other words, you could, like in Russia and all those years when they wouldn't let them do this, and they were obligated to continue to do it even if they.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I'm not speak negatively about people in the generation. They probably didn't know enough. But yeah, you'd be obligated, in a normal Shas Shmad, you'd be obligated to violate their law and die. By the way, the other thing is, it's not just Shas Shmad, if you're in front of a minyan. So what does that mean? That means in front of a kosher minyan, like minyan and shuls, 10 men of the age of 13 are present. Someone says to you, I want you to, yeah, well, no, bow down to idols always, what is our, always die. Even if it's in front of one person, even if it's not Shas Shmad. If they say, I want you to murder or be killed, you can't kill someone, okay? But even a regular halacha or minhag, someone says to you in front of a minyan, that creates a davar sheb'ver hesia, that creates a public spectacle, and it creates a kiddush Hashem. And by violating, it would be a chil Hashem. Chil Hashem is defined as violating Torah law in front of 10 people. That's the definition of chil Hashem. There's an offshoot of chil Hashem, which means that you're at Disneyland, don't complain if you're Jewish. That's what people think chil Hashem means. Sort of means
I
that.
thought
But
that's what I meant, like just in front of, if you are Jewish, you should just be wearing your uniform.
right, but real chil Hashem as a definition, the textual
Yeah.
definition is in front of 10 a minyan.
But what did you
And
mean by
Jew-
Disneyland?
I'm just saying in a public place, and you're carrying on, they're looking at you, you're Jewish. Stop complaining, Stop complaining about the Peter Pan line. It's not even a good ride. It's 5 hours in the heat. Yeah, it's great, but it's 5 hours of waiting for what?
You need to get the lightning speed.
Oh, yeah, the fast.
But they don't, it's not fast pass anymore.
But that's right. That's the halacha of, those are the halachos of Kiddush Hashem and Chil Hashem. So now, Bali Nefesh, Zoch Lama bin Senas, so if you're Zoch to do this, number one is your bitachon, you have faith in God. Vadelo yafst klum al yidei oved habore. You won't lose anything. The fact that you are oved habore, the fact you're serving Hashem. Yashnia, second amuka yoser is even deeper. There's a very simple claim. He's already in dachuf. Let's say in the middle of your tefillah, you realize you have to be somewhere else, right? Your watch and calendar app goes on and says, "Oh no, I have to be at this bris," right? Af im nesiazu he l'tzorach in gashmi, even if it's a physical need. Aval sof sof. Why am I going there? To do Hashem's will. Why should I rush there? Right? God's already here. I'm already davening with Hashem. So even if I have to run to a bris, I'm here with God over here. So why do I have to go join God over there when I'm with God right here? I don't know what he's saying in that last line. Let's make preparatory stages in the future.
Why does he need to prepare and lay the groundwork for future
Like my cousin was once told, when you're in the middle of this week's Tish, stop thinking about what song you're going to sing next week, right? You're right here, you're present. Be in this moment and stop thinking about a spiritual endeavor in the future.
But what if, like your example at the bris, and you're the rabbi at the bris? and
You
they're
got it,
waiting for
then
you?
you got to go. Tzarech Rabim always comes up first. You always have to. That's the same thing. Tzarech Rabim has like a sort of a superpower over your individual needs.
Right. Also, what if
That's why
someone-
learning to teach is more important. Teaching Torah is more important than learning Torah, because in fact, there's even a mandamar that says that it doesn't take away from your cheshbon of learning privately. That if I have an hour of my day to use for learning privately, to teach, I may be able to get more done privately, but teaching is more important. And so I won't even lose out. In the end of the day, I'll find the time.
The teaching also reinforces your learning. So you're
Yeah.
actually learning yourself at the time of teaching.
Yeah.
In fact, in medicine, it's like see one, do one, teach one.
So you practice on a body.
So you.
All right, the heart didn't work this time. Next time we'll get over. But
No, but I mean, in other words, you learn it so that you can teach it, and then you teach it and you read.
You know better. Absolutely.
What if someone has to go to the bathroom in the middle of davening?
Right.
Just stop and go to the bathroom.
Yeah, yeah. If you have to use the restroom, so in the middle of Shemona Esrei, if you can't wait, so you have to take 3 steps back, so you back out sort of cognitively from before Hashem, you run to the restroom, and man has to remove his tefillin and talus. If you're anywhere else in davening, so yeah, I mean, it's best not to interrupt in the middle of the paragraphs of the Shema. It's best to, like, if you're in a, but yeah, if one has to go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom. It's, preferably, you know. It's actually not allowed to talk to Hashem if you're have to relieve yourself. So, Amam b'chol ha'aros.
If you feel like you have to go, but you feel like you can wait, but you still feel it, you shouldn't
Right.
be talking to Hashem.
I don't know, because like there's some people who have a condition where they always feel like they have to use the restroom, but they can't. So it's a question. There, each case is different. You have to just sort of figure,
Yeah.
ask a question.
We
based on-
learned in school, like, you should just always try to go to the bathroom before you daven, and that way you just kind
Yeah.
When everybody's in the bathroom.
of, right before, I know.
Could be.
All the
The
kids.
davening is 2 hours later.
Right. We had teachers who were very mocking not to let us go out. They said you should have gone before class.
Every
You know.
time they said that, it was just recess. I didn't have to go during recess. I have to go now.
Yeah, I mean, I would dafka go during class because I wanted to leave.
Right, exactly.
I needed a few minutes away. The greatest like wrestling matches and fights took place in high school in the restroom during class. B'chol ha'aros she'havenu kan lo haisa kavanasenu la'orer es hakorei la'amod l'zakesh b'nisyanos shel regayim kashim. All of these insights that we brought here are not intended to awaken the reader to suddenly become to be able to stand against the most difficult challenges. There are many times that you can't be such a tzaddik. Al tiyeh tzaddik harbe, right? I gotta find there's a great radak on that. Al tiyeh tzaddik harbe. What he points out is that don't be too insistent to observe certain mitzvos where it's going to become excessive and inappropriate, where you're hunting down chumras. But he says here, there are times in which at least you're not supposed to take the midas chasidus path, the holiest path. Sometimes there is a room and appropriate to daven a short tefillah. Think about Miriam, right? Miriam davens the shortest, Moshe for Miriam, davens the tefillah of Kel Na Rafan Allah, right? God, please heal her, please. That's the shortest tefillah in history. Actually, they beat it last week in Shemona Esrei on Tuesday. But normally that was the shortest. That's the shortest tefillah normally, and it's appropriate. And sometimes Hashem says, "I don't even want prayer; I want action." But everything's specified based on case. But we have an example of people who are scrupulous in their observance. To learn a kal v'chomer to our own case. Asher kol shtus kitana u'devarim al mash b'kach. All the little
So that's-
stupidities.
Yeah, every silly little thing is likely to disturb our clarity. Of
Right,
mind.
mivalvolin datenu disturbs, confuses our knowledge. Motziim otanam avodos takes us away from our service. In the middle of your brachas, you're listening to the conversations going on outside. What's going on here, right? Sometimes even someone else is davening too loud or has an annoying voice, whatever it is, and like you can't even focus. It's hard. It's not easy, let alone when someone's talking about non-tefillah components. But whoever's successful in this war, and is able to stand to this challenge, and when they engage in their avoda, and when they make the bracha, so in those precious moments, the whole world fades into the background. It's as if there was a kiss of death and went up to Shamayim. He's talking about you, or he's talking about the other stuff?
It's as though he died through the kiss of Hashem and ascended to heaven. 'cause-
That's what happens to you when you have an encounter with God.
Yeah, 'cause
It's
nothing
that
else-
precious. So if you are davening, it's as if God kissed you and you went up to heaven. It's not that it's the other thing got the kiss of death, right?
Right.
Wow. Interesting,
Is
right?
it fortunate is he victorious?
Could you have in mind when you're davening that it's like Kilu dying? ובזה יזכה לסייעתא דשמיא גדול מאוד. שיש בזה כבוד שמיים גדול, דבקות באצבעך ואהבת השם. Ain't suffic, and there's no doubt, שמכוח זה יוסיף לו כברך אהבה, God will add love, al ahava so on your love already, ויזכה לגדלוס, and it'll be zocha to greatness, amisis, amitit, truth, the Torah avoda v'chol asher yaseh etzlech, and everything you do will be successful. Okay, we're up to Vav now. Start Vav, because Vav is long. It just looks to me, I'm just looking if this is the, yeah, Vav is like the very end of the Sefer. This. Few more items.
That's the end.
No, there's a little bit left. Yeah, Vav is like the last. Still take us a few sessions to go through all this. Yeah.
So,
Okay. Kuf ayin Dalet. V'yeshna eitz amuka. We have another deep advice. Umo'ilu lahagia lakavanas alei betfila gam b'shas tilka. Something that will reach the heart, and something that about kavanas alev when you are busy and tirda and you're distracted. Vigam yesod gadol halacha l'maisa b'chol inyan hatfila. It's a great yesod when it comes to tefillah and avodas Hashem. V'hu inyan hachana, and it's about preparation. Tzarech shiachin atzmo lifnei hatefillah lifnei asiyas kol mitzvah. You have to prepare yourself before tefillah and before performing any mitzvah. In Ikfar Asken, we already dealt with this hachana in the very beginning of the sefer. Betchilas hakontras. Remember, the first chapter was actually on preparation. Aval sham haya zev muvanach. There was a different focus. Here, I want to take it in a different direction. The first idea is to clear your heart from all the distractions. Aval yesh od inyan shel hachana. There's another component of preparation. Vehi l'sader ulitchanein ofen avodaso, and that is to be mesader, to prepare. Yavoda zman ma kodem sheyigash elea befoel, and that is that you should have bepoel indeed some sort of preparation in action. Okay, so what is that? You ever say the prayer before a prayer? So just so you should know, Rav Soloveitchik was against it. He always felt that, or saying the L'Shem Yichud Kutrabrichos, in the name of unifying the God, because that is the bracha. He felt that, Rav Shechter quotes this often, he said, why are you saying L'Shem Yichud? That's what the bracha does. So why are you saying that beforehand? He thought it was like Hasidish nonsense, that it was not really, but it's, it's part of a lot of the mitzvahs. If you look at, I always say, I always say it. I am prepared to count the sphera. And it's in most of the Siddur. Some people don't say it, probably because they don't want to say it. But some people don't say it out of principle. So I'm just giving you that background. So there is, before every mitzvah, you'll see in the Siddur, for Lulav, you'll see L'Shem Yichud. Before Shofar, there's a Shem Yichud. The oneness. The oneness of the name of God. That the name of God of Chesed and Gvur are the same. The God who loves me and gives me all these gifts is the same God who sometimes punishes me. And that's the oneness. It's the same God, Hashem Echad. So when I say Hinei Muchan Uzuman, Mudfas Besidurim, it's found in the sidders that we have for Lifnei Asiyas Mitzvah. Kol Chalif Minago, everyone based upon their minhag, Sheyada Ma Omeid Lasos. They know what to do. What daf are you up to? Kufayin. Sorry, okay. I realize what happened. Okay. No, you know what lasos teheach, lasoso beofen heter tov, hayosu tov, and how to do it in the best way. Shiyada lifnei mi sheosa mitzvah, vaz tasa liavodas b'shlemis. You know before whom you stand and what you're about to do. So we'll give the example today, and then we'll stop. Lemashol, here's the parable. Hine enenu rose tefillas Yom Noraim. Look at the prayers of the high holidays. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shitzurasim Shana Legamrim Kol Tefillas Hashanah. They're totally different than all the tefillas of the rest of the year. Efshar Lomar Sheshone Zeh Noveh Rak. It's not just because a person's trying to tap into the holiness of the day. Because many of us want to desire to daven every day as if it was the Yom Noraim. We try to have kavana, it doesn't work. Already as the first brachas is recited, you already lost the special thought that, oh, maybe let me make this a special davening. It's already gone. And you're wandering in your mind to some other planet. But on Yom Noraim, we are successful in creating a higher level, higher quality davening, Roma Mus Yosir, a holier davening, Madregas Aragila, than the usual level. Because the holiness of the day assists us in creating a better prayer. But naturally, there's another reason why this would happen to us. What is that reason? The main reason is that every Jew is a Baal Nefesh and a Ben Torah. And because we are we're all holy, so in truth, we know that we're ready to call out, have a Rosh Hashanah davening in the middle of the year, if we were called upon it. What's the proof that we could do it if we really wanted to? Well, you would do it in Yom Kippur, but if it was the biggest, medical test of your life, you're going today, wouldn't that be like a Yom Kippur davening for you, right? Like you're going to find out something really, really good or chas v'shalom really bad. You're going to daven, like it was Yom Kippur. So if that's the case, that means that any of us are capable of becoming that person in that moment.
But it's a conditional thing. So like when you daven on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, it's not conditional. It's like davening is pure and it's.
Well, I'll put it this way. On Rosh Hashanah, you sense that decision is being made, that you're about to have a test. So it's conditional also, which means, but really Hashem is making little decisions all the time about our lives. And something happens, someone has an accident. You don't know what day that's going to happen to you. There's going to be, or any day something can happen that can be wondrous or terrible. And there sort of is this idea that I'm always standing before the Kadosh Baruch Hu, always in that moment, right?
But I've always learned that there's something special on Yom Kippur, especially that that it's just the Yom, the Kedushat Yom that gives you that.
Yeah, the Kedusha Yom is the most important factor, but he's arguing that any person has it in them to create a special prayer at any moment, and to make it an exalted experience. And then let's understand this. Sorry, Hagad's Macha. Pay attention. So, how many times can you think about this? Let's say Rosh Hashanah is arriving, right? Oh, thank you. Good. Plug that in. Okay, so let's say Rosh Hashanah comes. Rosh Hashanah, as you said, is a special day. Is a menorah. It's a wondrous, it's a majestic day. It's palka. I'm davening on a high level. And then there's Elul. Even if I didn't do tshuva properly, aval roa b'dimyono asarot. We know that there's more of a pachad, a fear, a glory, a remembering of the day of judgment. And you at least imagine your head. When you're standing in the Aseres Me'tshuva, you're more serious. And the days of Elul, miyom liyom ad kamash miskar v'yosel yom nora. So you're closer to the wondrous day. Harei hu matuach yosef yosir. So as you get closer, you are also more. Yeah, you feel that sense of urgency.
Serious and concerned.
There's a sense of urgency that you feel. You're concerned more. If I know Peros, hachana zu him kasher sof sof magil yom mich. No, what's the idea of it? Why the concern? Because you know that in the end you're going to get to that day. There's a buildup. I find that buildup is true by Tisha B'Av also. It's like not just for the 3 weeks, but it's like weeks, and you have the 9 days, right? Chalbo, and the nihuge of helos, the customs of mourning become more serious, and you feel the pressure is mounting towards Tisha B'Av. It's like a very, and you're hoping it's not going to happen, but harehu kfar muchan v'kulu daroch likros hamishima mele shekam b'shas ma'aseh kol ma shekol kach chashav alav chinas mo shekach yeh. Whenever there's something important, you build up to that moment. This is the reality. Okay, so this is the concept that really it's true. It is special around Rosh Hashanah, but we actually we have to go further in this. I'm sorry, we have to go a little further. 2 more minutes. Someone who's traveling Erev Rosh Hashanah. Right before Rosh Hashanah, he arrives a minute before Shkia, and you can put the car keys down. You don't get a chance to shower, right? You're confused. Your hair is a mess. You're exhausted. You're tired. Your shirt is untucked. If this happened to you in the middle of the year, so if this happened to you during the year, okay, you'd be exhausted, you'd have a lousy davening. But if it's about to happen on your Rosh Hashanah, you just arrived, you're going to strengthen yourself like a lion. These public governors with great strength, the aim of a year. Why? Because there's so much preparation that went into this moment. It's happened to me actually the other day on Sunday when I ran a race. I actually, the time of one of the old emails said 7:30 start time, and then it was a 7 o'clock start time. No one told me. So I pull up and everyone's like running away. I'm like, where are they going? Oh no. But you're ready. You're already there. I was just late. It's fine. It starts when you pass the time, the chip. And I didn't have to run with all the riffraff for the first 5 minutes. I was 17 minutes behind them. Then I caught up with all the slow pokes, and it was really annoying because they have to push them out of the way when like I see the marker and the 11 minute. I'm like, 11 minutes? Who's running a 12-minute mile? I'm like, get out of the way. They're having a milkshake like in the back row. I mean, move it. Move on. What are they doing here? Finally, we got to like the normal people, and then the human beings. No, just kidding. So anyway, but imagine you're now running late, not for a marathon, but you're running late for Rosh Hashanah. So right away you get serious. You know exactly what you have to do. The best scene ever in Jaws is in Jaws when they're sitting on the boat and they're drunk out of their minds and they're singing the song and they're showing me the way to go home, right? Na, 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 na. You remember the scene? It's the best song.
Actually never saw Jaws.
Show me the way to go home, and I'm tired and I want to go to bed, and I had another drink and getting to my head, and then all of a sudden you hear they're like crashing the glass down on the table, and you hear the banging on the ship, and the shark is hitting the ship, and suddenly they wake up and they realize that they have to be serious. So like imagine you're running late for Rosh Hashanah, and now you show up, and now okay, so you're disheveled, your hair is a mess, but I didn't get to this point to ruin this tefillah. This is everything. Where am I going? As you're driving to shul, you know where you're going. Leshiva, to the Rebbe, to Tefillah Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to daven Rosh Hashanah for the king. And you keep imagining in your head how it's going to look. The room is going to be full. The lights are going to, all the light bulbs are going to be operational because they just fixed the carpets clean. People are going to be wearing their white garments. The chazin's going to be singing, belting out. Everyone's going to be quiet, scared, shaking. Arvis Rishon, the first Mariv. When we get to that moment, the rega, and Rosh Kol Kach is going low. So they understand. Hachana is not just so zuhi dugma lachana gedol rechava meod. Ketfilas yom noraim. Aval be'emes gam tfilas yom everyday tefillah. If you were able to just prepare in your head in kitzas machshava yuchal lasos hachana mein zu lischonen ledimyon lachshov tzuras ma'amad. If you were able to ever actually plan out a little bit what it's going to look like. Pamen rabos is uzman nikar kodem shmagil lemaisa. As kasher yamod lispal, when you get up to stand and daven, tiek kavanasos sedur lo mamish me'eleh. Tefillah is going to roll right out off your tongue, and the siddur is going to open itself up. The yira oros betfilaso, and you'll see great light with your tefillah. We'll stop here in the middle of page kuf ayin vav. Lord Makor.
Run 333.